Greetings, colleague. This is 161st day of heroic resistance of Ukraine. I am Natalia Staroprava, and we start a series of briefings at the Mediacentru Ukraine. With us, we have Dmytro Solomchuk, a Ukrainian member of parliament, a member of the Agrarian and Land Policy Committee. Dmytro, we have a question to you. How would you assess the readiness of the Ukrainian farmers to reap this year's harvest and their readiness for this year? Greetings. The context for agriculture is particularly difficult this year, and the context in the northern areas that were hit by the hostilities are not easy, but the agrarians are incredibly brave people. We are helping them as a government. We are seeking external support we can raise for them. It's easier for those that have in the last years been developing livestock farming, and our committee have always underscored that the business needs to have a closed circuit production. So this has been a very indicative year of the for the livestock farmers, as they are independent of the logistics, they are independent of exports, they are processing their produce and developing feed and feeding it to their livestock and poultry, and then perhaps buying some manufacturing and processing equipment, as there is a high demand from the European and other countries for the Ukrainian produce. We could say that today, when there is a label of made in Ukraine on a food package, it speaks of quality. And Denmark, for instance, is seeking to open up a separate department of Ukrainian products. If you should walk into a German store, a special organic store, you would find a lot of Ukrainian food commodities, as we provide top quality and we do use fewer fertilizers and compared to other farmers. Some farmers are only aiming to reach the organic status by 2030. We have been growing organic and are growing organically. Also, we are working to put in mobile repositories for uh, grain, and we are raising support from the United States of America and some private funds. They will supply mobile repositories that will be handed out to the farmers who need them for 4 months. We've been working very closely with a large global world fund of Warren Buffett. He's a world renowned person, a businessman, a donor and benefactor. He has given the Ukrainian fund called the Victory Harvest a number of agricultural pieces of machinery like the harvesting machines that are given free of charge to the farmers for them to be in a better position to reap their harvest, as this is the advanced machinery. And it is also a good way to save and the farmers have to pay high fees to lease a harvester, and receiving a harvester for free is a major help. As for naval exports of our foodstuffs, it's a matter of critical importance as the top priority for the presidential office and for the Ukrainian parliament, as the naval logistics is 3 to 5 times cheaper compared to the transit by road. And this money saved will be reinvested in Ukrainian rural territories, in increasing production facilities instead of spending it on the logistics costs. Also, the capacity of the naval ports is much higher. We have been very successful by delivering our shipments by road. So in March, we've exported 200,000 to 300,000 tons, but in July, we've exported 2.5 million tons of produce. And this is a massive effort of the Presidential Office, of the Ministry for Infrastructure, the Ministry for Agriculture, our parliamentary committee. But still, transporting by road is difficult and expensive. Dmytro, I wanted to ask you about the export of produce. If the export is disrupted by sea, do we have an alternative? I do hope this will not be disrupted, as the UN have shouldered the responsibility for the exports together with Turkey. There are so many countries who are dependent on these Ukrainian exports, as we export high quality grain and we can speedily deliver grain to the countries that much need it, such as the countries of South Africa, as we can deliver the grain in 2 or 3 days. And that is most effective and efficient. And I know the countries will insist that the exports should happen and security shall be guaranteed. Should any disruption happen, we will have to export by road and ramp up our capacity to export by road up to 3 million tons. And that is a feasible level. And beyond that, for export to be enabled to stabilize the economy and the national currency so that we could pay back the 8 million families. And that is a major impetus for the development of our rural areas. We need to export 5-6 million tons. We have negotiated and liaised with a number of companies that are developing technologies, and we are still discussing a number of possibilities. We're considering the option of putting in vacuum transporters to ship grain to the Western Europe. But the question is that their railway and their trailers cannot cope with the massive load. They never expected to have such a heavy transit, and this is a truly heavy transit. It's about millions of tons that need to be transported. But the Ukrainian agrarians produce much more than grain. We are number one honey producers in the world. We produce thousands of tons of honey. Poland is 80% dependent on us for honey supplies. We have a number of other crops and other processed goods that are gaining increasing popularity in the world. And today, as ever, we need to boost our livestock production. As the livestock farmers have not always been profitable before, now are enjoying stability and showing good financial performance, as regardless of the logistics and the add-on for the logistics, are capable of using the crops to feed the livestock, to process the products, and this is a major saving of time and economy on the logistical costs. And they are in a good position to export finished produce. And there's high demand for Ukrainian finished livestock products. All the processing facilities in Ukraine are loaded to their full capacity. And now, for 3 or 4 weeks, we've launched launched the processing grant program. The Cabinet of Ministers is receiving applications. Together with the Ministry of Economy, will be issuing processing grants, as many villages need to have their own processing facility. If we have a processing facility of any kind in a village, that will keep the village living, and 25 to 30 people or families will be employed, and that will provide a good social welfare level. There will be shop working, the local bus shall be running, and the village will be living and breathing, and that is super important. Metron, we know the enemy is deliberately targeting the silos, the fields with grain. Will the farmers be compensated for the damages inflicted by the Russian troops? The compensations haven't been brought in yet, but the damage needs to be documented thoroughly, and we need to have expert assessments made. Private assessors can be brought in. The Ministry of Justice assessors are available. The damage to the machinery needs to be assessed. The damage to the premises and fields need to be assessed and documented. All the papers have to be in order. We had a meeting last week with the MPs. The Deputy Minister attended the meeting, and we um, formulated a proposal so that additional money would be budgeted for the next year. And I know this will receive support of the Ukrainian Parliament to compensate the um, assessment costs, as not all can pay a few thousand hryvnia for the assessment. I know this will be refined and finalized, and the MPs are bound to support the decision. I'm urging all the agrarians to document any damage, and time shall come when we forfeit the assets of the Russian Federation, and we will receive them in our recovery funds, and we will pay out the compensation of the damages. But it's critical to have the damages documented on paper. Please seek advice of the Ministry of Justice. Please seek support of your members of parliament for your constituency. I'm happy to help out with advice and information. We know that Ukraine is offering accessible loans at 5.79% interest. Is it in any demand? Before I entered politics, I was a businessman and I worked in manufacturing, and I have always dreamt of Ukraine having such loans of 5.79% interest. I've never seen any loans lower than 30% interest in the national currency. Now this is available lending facility, and the money being available for business is truly vital, as many companies are pressed for cash, as many are donating funds to the army, to the territorial defense, helping out volunteer movements, and uh, companies need to replenish their cash flow. And now uh, we are making these loans available. Moreover, the payments will be deferred for the agrarians. We are working to bring in additional funds to help with the sowing campaign, which is coming up. A new program is also brought in for businesses with the turnover capital upwards of 30 million, 2.7 million a month income. So that is roughly medium-sized businesses. And these businesses employ most people in Ukraine. They are gaining speed, especially in a number of sectors, and now people can take a loan up to 6 million revenue with zero interest, truly zero interest and no collateral. This is a dream facility. No other country can match such lending, and the loan can reach 10 million, and there are 50% guarantees of the Cabinet of Ministers in place, and the remainder needs to be supported with the collateral of movable assets, or else any lending facility of a state bank will offer advice. And starting fall, we are going to bring in zero interest loans for the military, for the veterans, for the teachers, for the medics. So that is equally important, as loans are about improving solvency of the Ukrainians, and by increasing the solvency and the payment capacity of the Ukrainians will buy more, so that will trigger the economic cycle. And the way we can revitalize the Ukrainian economy is issue 579 percent loans, and that will bring in the revenue and rekindle the economy, creating new jobs. Thank you. And finally, tell us where and how are you planning to store the new harvest? Historically, the agrarians have been very comprehensive about storing grain, building silos in many villages. I don't quite see the point of building silos in a village which is not connected to a major port or to the railway, or um, close to the customs clearance house. Now the world is storing the agricultural produce and silos um, in bags. These are 3-meter diameter, 60-meter long bags, and they can host tons of grain. There are different types of them, like sunflower is light, grain is heavy, so less of it goes into the bag. And we've been working with the ministry and the Cabinet of Ministers and a number of other international, private, and governmental actors. And I know that we will receive a large number of such agrarian bags as charitable support to support the Ukrainian farmers. And they are arriving sometimes soon. This is about safety. It's about dispersing the produce. It can be stored on the field up to 24 months without any concerns. It's about safety, and it's about cheap storage. The agrarians will perhaps reconsider their views on agricultural production, because why invest in building a silo in a village which is not connected by rail? $10 million, if the projects can be stored in bag, and $10 million be better invested elsewhere, let's say in processing. Why spend the money just to store? Because processing is far more important. And with the money saved on building a silo, you could put in a modern, advanced processing facility and start supplying your produce onto the European markets. Denmark is wishing to open a section of the Ukrainian foodstuffs in every supermarket, in every food store. Made in Ukraine on a product and a blue and golden flag is a hallmark of top quality produce, and it is in high demand by the Europeans. Dmytro, we thank you so much for joining us. We talked to Dmytro Solomchuk, Ukrainian MP, a member of the Agrarian and Land Policy Committee. We'll see you shortly at 12 as we meet Alexander Sienkiewicz, the mayor